shadows, and silence. The fluorescent lights of Everest Technologies hummed above Zara Mehta's workstation, casting a sterile glow over her meticulous spreadsheets. At 29, Zara had mastered the art of blending into corporate backgrounds, her desk positioned in the corner of the vast open-plan office, her clothes in muted tones that matched the gray carpet, her voice rarely rising above a whisper during meetings. "Another late night, Zara?" asked Priya Kapoor, the marketing director who occupied the office nearest Zara's desk. She was already dressed to leave, designer handbag slung over one shoulder. "Just finishing the quarterly analytics report," Zara replied, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "The patterns in this data are fascinating, actually. I found that our user engagement increases by 37% when—" "That's nice," Priya interrupted with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Don't stay too late. Building security gets grumpy after 9. With a click of her heels, she was gone, leaving Zara alone with her illuminated screen and complex algorithms. Zara sighed softly. Her colleagues were never unkind, they simply didn't see her. Not truly. To them, she was a reliable fixture like the water cooler or the copy machine, useful but unremarkable. What they failed to notice was the brilliance behind her quiet demeanor, the way she could translate numbers into insights that could transform the company's approach to everything from customer retention to product development. The office grew quieter as staff trickled out. Zara lost herself in her work, adding the final touches to her report. This wasn't part of her assigned tasks. It was an extra analysis she'd conducted during her lunch breaks and after hours, identifying trends that everyone else had missed. "You're still here," the deep voice startled her. Zara looked up to find Vikram Singhania standing by her desk, his tall frame silhouetted against the dimming office lights. At 38, the founder and CEO of Everest Technologies carried an air of easy confidence that Zara had always envied. His reputation for brilliance was matched only by his reputation for noticing everything, a quality that made Zara both admire and avoid him. "Mr. Singhania," she stammered, quickly minimizing her screen. "I didn't realize anyone else was still here." His dark eyes studied her with curious intensity. "What were you working on just now? It didn't look like the standard quarterly report template." Zara hesitated. "It's an additional analysis, something I've been exploring in my spare time." Something shifted in his expression. Interest, perhaps. "Show me." It wasn't a request. With trembling fingers, Zara reopened her file and turned the screen toward him. Vikram leaned closer, the subtle scent of his sandalwood cologne enveloping her as he studied her work. The proximity made her heart flutter unexpectedly. "This is remarkable," he murmured, scrolling through her detailed analysis. "You've identified correlations our entire analytics team missed." "It's nothing special," Zara said automatically, the habit of diminishing herself too ingrained to break. Vikram looked at her then, really looked at her, as if seeing something beneath her carefully constructed invisibility. "We both know that's not true." He straightened, decision made. "I want this on my desk tomorrow with your name prominently displayed. And Zara, I'd like you to present it at the executive meeting on Friday." "But I've never—" "It's time people saw what I see," he said simply, his voice gentle but firm. Before she could protest further, he was walking away, pausing at the door to add, "You've been invisible long enough." "Miss Mehta." As his footsteps faded, Zara sat frozen, equal parts terrified and exhilarated. For the first time in years, someone had truly seen her. And not just anyone. Vikram Singhania, the man whose vision had built this company from nothing. The man who, unknown to him, had just begun to rebuild her. First light. The executive boardroom of Everest Technologies felt impossibly vast as Zara stood before the curved mahogany table, 14 pairs of eyes fixed on her. Her presentation materials were impeccable. She'd spent the entire night refining them, but her confidence wavered like a flame in the wind. "As you can see from these user engagement metrics," her voice emerged softer than intended, and she cleared her throat, starting again. From the head of the table, Vikram Singhania gave an almost imperceptible nod of encouragement. Something in his steady gaze anchored her, and Zara found her voice growing stronger. The data reveals that our customers aren't just looking for efficiency, they're seeking connection. When our interface creates moments of delight, these small interactions I've highlighted, retention increases by 43%. As she continued, painting stories with numbers and graphs, she noticed a shift in the room. Executives who had barely acknowledged her existence for 3 years were now leaning forward, engaging with her insights. Arun Mehra, the notoriously critical CFO, was actually taking notes. In conclusion, Zara said, her voice now clear and confident, by implementing these 5 recommendations, we could potentially increase annual revenue by $28 million. The silence that followed felt electric until Vikram rose from his chair. Thank you, Ms. Mehta. Exceptional work. He turned to the room. I'd like Zara to lead a special analytics task force implementing these recommendations. Any objections? None came. Later, as executives filtered out, discussing Zara's presentation in animated tones, Vikram approached her desk. I knew you'd impress them, he said, his eyes reflecting genuine pride. Thank you for the opportunity, Zara replied, still buzzing from the experience. Though I'm not sure I'm ready to lead a task force. Certainty often follows action, not the other way around, Vikram said. Meet me for dinner tonight. We'll discuss the project parameters. Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving Zara with the startling realization that Vikram Singhania had just asked her to dinner. Professional dinner? She reminded herself firmly, ignoring the flutter in her stomach. That evening, she discovered that Vikram's idea of a business dinner meant the intimate rooftop restaurant at the Meridian, with its panoramic view of the city skyline. Away from the office, he was different, more relaxed, his usual intensity softened by genuine curiosity about her thoughts. Why data analytics? He asked after they'd ordered. With your perceptive abilities, you could excel in many fields. The question caught Zara off guard. No one had ever asked about her passion before. Numbers tell honest stories, she said finally. They don't care if you're shy or awkward or don't speak up in meetings. They reveal their secrets if you're patient enough to listen. Something flickered in Vikram's expression. Recognition, perhaps. People can be honest, too, when given the chance. Their conversation flowed easily after that, moving from work to books, films, and eventually to personal histories. Zara learned that Vikram had built Everest after being fired from his first job. Foreseeing problems no one wanted acknowledged, he explained with a wry smile that transformed his serious features. When their hands accidentally brushed as they reached for the wine list, Zara felt a current of awareness that had nothing to do with professional respect. Vikram's eyes met hers, holding her gaze a moment longer than necessary, before he gently withdrew his hand. As the evening ended, Vikram walked her to her car. I look forward to working more closely with you, Zara, he said, her name sounding different in his deep voice, like something valuable. Driving home, Zara realized that for the first time in years, she was looking forward to tomorrow. Something was changing, in her career certainly, but perhaps in her heart as well. The thought should have terrified her, but instead, she found herself smiling into the darkness, anticipation replacing her usual anxiety. She was stepping into the light, and it felt remarkably like coming home. Breaking through, 3 weeks into leading the analytics task force, Zara barely recognized her professional life. Her team, handpicked by Vikram, respected her expertise and valued her quiet leadership style. Her workspace had moved from the forgotten corner to a glass-walled office adjacent to Vikram's, where they often worked late into the evening, their minds in surprising harmony. But tonight was different. Zara stared at her monitor in disbelief, triple-checking the alarming patterns in the data. This can't be right, she murmured, running the analysis again. What is it? Vikram appeared in her doorway, his tie loosened after a day of investor meetings. Zara gestured him closer. I've been monitoring the implementation of our new user experience design, and there's been a sudden 20% drop in engagement in the Southeast Asian market. Vikram frowned, studying her screen. That doesn't align with our projections. Because it's not a design problem, Zara said, pulling up another screen. It's a competitive threat. This startup, Quantum Tech, launched a similar platform last week with features specifically targeting our weaknesses in that region. Vikram's shoulders tensed. Everest was planning to announce their expansion into Southeast Asia at next week's technology conference, a move that had been months in preparation. This could derail everything. How bad is it? He asked. Bad enough that we need to respond immediately. But Zara hesitated, then continued more confidently, I think I see an opportunity here. For the next hour, they worked side by side, Zara outlining a counter-strategy while Vikram made rapid calls to the development team. Their proximity in the small office made Zara acutely aware of him. The subtle scent of his cologne, the intensity in his eyes as he focused, the way his hand occasionally brushed against hers as they shared the keyboard. Near midnight, with a viable plan taking shape, Vikram ordered food. They sat on the floor of her office, sharing container of biryani as they finalized their approach. We'll need to present this to the board tomorrow, Vikram said, running a hand through his slightly disheveled hair. They won't be easily convinced. Zara nodded, aware of the challenge. The board was notoriously resistant to rapid changes. I'll prepare the presentation tonight. We'll prepare it, Vikram corrected. This is our solution, Zara. Our solution. The words warmed her more than they should have. As they worked through the night, the professional boundaries between them softened. Vikram shared stories of early failures that had shaped his success. Zara confessed her lifelong struggle with being overlooked. In the quiet vulnerability of 3 a.m., they discovered layers in each other that the daylight had never revealed. When Zara finally stretched, her muscles stiff from hours at the computer, Vikram was watching her with an unreadable expression. What? She asked, suddenly self-conscious. You're remarkable, he said simply. Not just your mind, though, that's extraordinary. It's the way you see possibilities where others see problems. Something shifted between them in that moment. A recognition that transcended professional admiration. The next morning, they presented their strategy to the board. Zara, running on 2 hours of sleep but fueled by newfound confidence, led the presentation. When questioned aggressively by board member Rajiv Sharma, she held her ground without flinching. Mr. Sharma, with respect, waiting for a more opportune moment would cost us approximately $7 million and significant market share, she stated firmly. The data supports immediate action. The boardroom fell silent. No one had ever challenged Rajiv so directly. Then Vikram spoke from beside her. I stand fully behind Ms. Mehta's assessment and recommendation. The question isn't whether we can afford to implement this strategy. It's whether we can afford not to. The board approved their plan unanimously. Later, as they left the boardroom together, Vikram's hand rested briefly on the small of Zara's back. A touch so light it might have been imagined, yet it sent warmth cascading through her. We make a good team, he said quietly. Yes, Zara agreed, meeting his gaze directly for perhaps the first time. We do. The woman who had spent years avoiding attention now stood tall under Vikram's appreciative gaze, no longer afraid of being seen. The crisis had done more than threaten the company. It had shattered the last of her protective walls. Part 4. Hearts Unveiled. The Southeast Asian strategy proved wildly successful, catapulting Everest Technologies ahead of its competitors and cementing Zara's reputation as a rising star. What had begun as a professional partnership between her and Vikram had evolved into something neither of them named, but both increasingly relied upon. Late-night strategy sessions, weekend brainstorming over coffee, text messages that strayed from work to personal territories. Tonight, they were celebrating the successful launch at Vikram's penthouse apartment, along with the core team who had made it happen. Zara arrived last, having changed from her work clothes into a deep blue dress that her friend Leela had insisted brought out the fire in her eyes. When Vikram opened the door, his momentary speechlessness told her Leela had been right. You look, he started, then shook his head slightly. Everyone's on the terrace. The evening flowed pleasantly with champagne and conversation under the stars. One by one, team members departed until only Zara remained, helping Vikram gather empty glasses. "You don't have to clean up," he said, taking a glass from her hand. Their fingers brushed and neither pulled away immediately. "I don't mind," she replied, suddenly aware of the quiet intimacy of the moment. "It's been a perfect evening." Vikram moved to the sound system, and soft classical music filled the space. "Dance with me?" he asked, extending his hand. "To celebrate properly?" It seemed the most natural thing in the world to step into his arms, though her heart raced at their closeness. They moved slowly, her head eventually coming to rest against his chest, where she could hear the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "This wasn't in my 5-year business plan," Vikram murmured against her hair, a smile in his voice. Zara looked up at him. "What wasn't?" "Finding someone who sees the world the way I do. Someone who challenges me, impresses me." His hand gently cupped her face. "Someone I can't stop thinking about." The confession hung between them, honest and vulnerable. For a woman who had spent her life analyzing data and probabilities, the next moment required a leap of faith that no spreadsheet could calculate. "I can't stop thinking about you either," she whispered. His kiss was gentle at first, a question more than a demand. When she responded, drawing closer, his arms tightened around her, the passion between them building like a symphony reaching its crescendo. Later, they stood on his terrace overlooking the city, Zara wrapped in Vikram's embrace, her back against his chest as he pointed out constellations in the night sky. His lips traced the curve of her neck, sending shivers through her body. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," he confessed, turning her to face him. "What took you so long?" she asked, surprising herself with her boldness. His laugh was warm against her skin. "I needed to be sure you weren't just responding to the authority of my position. That you saw me? Vikram, not the CEO." "I've always seen you," Zara said softly, "even when I was afraid to let you see me." His hands traced the contours of her face as if memorizing her features. Beautiful Zara, who hid in plain sight until she couldn't anymore. Their kisses deepened, hands exploring with increasing urgency until Vikram pulled back slightly, his breathing uneven. "Stay with me tonight," he said, his voice husky with desire. In answer, Zara took his hand and led him inside, toward his bedroom. Under his adoring gaze, she felt truly beautiful for perhaps the first time in her life, not just desired but cherished, not just seen but understood. In the darkness of his room, illuminated only by the city lights filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows, they discovered each other completely. Vikram's touch was reverent, tracing the curves of her body with exquisite care. Every kiss, every caress was a revelation, building a language between them that transcended words. "I never expected you," Vikram whispered against her skin, his voice filled with wonder. Zara's response was lost in a gasp of pleasure as they moved together, finding a rhythm as perfect as their professional synchronicity had been. In his arms, she was no longer the invisible analyst, but a woman fully alive, fully present in her power and vulnerability. Afterward, wrapped in each other's embrace, Zara realized that the data had been there all along, in every lingering glance, every accidental touch, every late night working side by side. The analytics had pointed to this inevitable conclusion. They had found in each other something rare and precious. "What happens tomorrow?" she asked, tracing patterns on his chest. Vikram kissed her forehead gently. "Tomorrow we begin writing a new chapter, together." Two hearts, one vision. 6 months later, Everest Technology's annual conference buzzed with anticipation. Industry leaders and technology journalists filled the auditorium, drawn by rumors of a revolutionary announcement. On stage, Vikram adjusted his microphone, the spotlights catching the subtle platinum band on his left hand, a recent addition that matched the one Zara wore. 3 years ago, I founded this company with a vision of technology that serves humanity rather than replaces it, he began. Today we unveil the next evolution of that vision, Project Lighthouse. The screens behind him illuminated with the sleek interface of their new platform. As he outlined its capabilities, Zara watched from the wings, pride warming her chest. This was their shared brainchild, born from countless evenings of discussion, debate, and inspiration, often while tangled in the sheets of what was now their shared penthouse. But the true innovation isn't the technology itself, Vikram continued, his voice resonant with conviction. It's the philosophy behind it, which recognizes that brilliance often hides in unexpected places. He paused, his gaze finding Zara. To explain this further, I'd like to introduce our Chief Innovation Officer, Zara Mehta Singhania. The audience applauded as Zara walked onto the stage. Her steps confident, her smile genuine. Gone was the woman who had hidden in corporate shadows. In her place stood a leader whose quiet strength commanded respect without demanding it. Taking the microphone, Zara began, "Lighthouse was inspired by a simple truth. The most valuable insights often come from those least likely to voice them." She explained how their platform incorporated a system that amplified overlooked voices within organizations, creating pathways for ideas to flow upward regardless of their origin. As she spoke, she noticed several women in the audience nodding in recognition of the challenge she described. After the presentation, amid enthusiastic reception, Vikram found her in the green room. "You were magnificent," he said, drawing her into a private embrace. "We were magnificent," she corrected, straightening his tie affectionately. "It's our vision, remember?" His smile held a tenderness reserved only for her. "Indeed it is, Mrs. Mehta Singhania." Their marriage, just 2 months old, had raised eyebrows in corporate circles, the billionaire CEO and the once invisible analyst. But those who worked closely with them understood. Theirs was a partnership of equals, each bringing unique strengths that complemented the other perfectly. The reception that evening brought congratulations from competitors and allies alike. As Zara moved through the crowd, accepting accolades with gracious humility, she caught sight of Priya Kapoor, the marketing director who had once dismissed her insights. "I never would have predicted this," Priya said, gesturing to Zara's position at the center of attention. "You've changed." "Not changed," Zara corrected gently. "Revealed." Later, as the celebration wound down, Vikram found Zara on the hotel balcony, gazing at the city lights. "Having second thoughts about the spotlight?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned into his embrace, considering. "No, it feels right now, though I don't think I'll ever entirely lose the quiet observer in me." "I would never want you to," Vikram said. "That perspective is your superpower." Turning in his arms, Zara reached up to trace the contours of his face, the strong jawline, the intelligent eyes that had first seen her potential. "Do you remember telling me that talent isn't about shouting the loudest?" He nodded, capturing her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. "Sometimes it's about being seen when you choose to show up." "You saw me before I chose to show up," she said softly. "You changed everything." His dark eyes held hers with the intensity that still made her heart race. "We changed each other. I was all vision and no patience, all strategy and no heart." Their kiss was tender, a reaffirmation of the bond that had grown between them, one forged through professional respect, deepened through intellectual partnership, and ultimately transformed by love. The next morning, they stood together at the podium for the closing address of the conference. Hundreds of eyes watched as the power couple of Everest Technologies outlined their vision for the future. "Innovation isn't just about technology," Zara concluded. "It's about creating spaces where everyone can be seen and heard." As applause filled the auditorium, Vikram took her hand, his thumb brushing over her wedding ring. In that gesture lay a promise that extended beyond business success, a commitment to seeing each other, truly and completely, every day for the rest of their lives. Together, they had built more than a revolutionary platform or a successful company. They had created a partnership where each amplified the other's strengths, where vulnerability became power, and where love had transformed two solitary souls into something greater than either could have become alone. For Zara Mehta Singhania, who had once been invisible, this was the greatest revelation of all. Being truly seen was not about standing in the spotlight, but about finding that one person whose eyes never wavered from yours, even in the darkest of rooms.